Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be exploring the amazing world of the human brain.
Ooh, exciting.
We'll be unpacking some key ideas from Lisa Feldman Barrett's talk and book, 7 and 12 Lessons About the Brain. Get ready to bust some myths and uncover some surprising truths about how that gray matter actually works.
What's fascinating about brain science is that for a long time, we were trying to fit new discoveries into these old ideas.
Hmm.
It's like we were looking for evidence to confirm what we already thought we knew, instead of just letting the evidence lead us to new understandings.
Like trying to cram a square peg into a round hole. It makes me think of that classic triune brain model. The idea that we have a primitive lizard brain for instincts,
Right.
then a mammalian brain for emotions, and finally the rational human neocortex layered on top. I bet a lot of people still picture it that way.
It's a compelling narrative, right?
Yep.
But it turns out to be more metaphorical than accurate.
Really?
For example, the neocortex, which we think of as the newest part of the brain,
Mm.
is actually present in many vertebrates, even those that diverged from our evolutionary line hundreds of millions of years ago.
So, if our brains didn't evolve for thinking, as the triune brain model suggests, what was the driving force behind their development?
Well, if we look at the core function of brains across the animal kingdom,
Okay.
it becomes clear. Brains evolved to regulate bodies. Their primary job is to keep us alive and functioning
Alive and functions.
within a complex and ever-changing environment.
Okay, so it's not about thinking deep thoughts, it's about keeping the body alive and well.
Yeah.
How does that work in practice? What's happening in my brain right now as we speak?
You can think of your brain as a constantly running body budget.
Okay.
It's constantly managing your internal resources, things like glucose, water, salt, hormones, to keep everything in balance and ensure your survival.
Hmm.
It's predicting your needs, making sure you have the energy to meet upcoming challenges, and restoring equilibrium after you've exerted yourself.
The body budget, I like that. It's so much more concrete than just saying the brain regulates the body. So if my brain is like a budget, what happens when I'm running a deficit? What are the signs that I'm overspending my resources?
That's a great question. And it's where understanding the body budget becomes really relevant to your everyday life.
Okay.
When your brain senses a shortage of essential resources,
Uh-huh.
it signals this through feelings of fatigue, stress, cravings,
Oh, craving.
and even changes in mood.
You're telling me that my afternoon slump might not just be laziness, but my brain trying to tell me it needs a recharge.
Exactly.
That changes things. Suddenly, that sugary snack craving makes a lot more sense.
And it highlights how intertwined our mental and physical health truly are.
Mm,
We often treat them as separate systems,
right.
but in reality, they're deeply connected.
Yeah.
Your brain's efforts to regulate your body have a direct impact on how you feel and behave.
This body budget concept really puts things into perspective. But speaking of evolution, Lisa Feldman Barrett mentions this tiny sea creature called Amphioxus, which has barely changed in 400 million years. It seems like a real outlier. How does that fit into this picture of brains and bodies evolving together?
Amphioxus is a fantastic example of how evolution isn't always about constant, dramatic change.
Hmm.
If an organism's environment remains relatively stable and their current form is successful, there's no real pressure to adapt.
Oh, interesting.
Amphioxus demonstrates that staying the same can be a winning strategy, at least for a while.
So change is triggered by environmental pressures.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that humans are actually changing the environment both for ourselves and every other species on the planet.
Okay.
I'm thinking about climate change and the massive shifts it's causing.
Precisely. The rapid environmental changes we're driving
Yeah.
are forcing species to adapt at an accelerated pace. Some may succeed,
Mm.
but many will likely face extinction. This is a crucial insight. Our actions have far-reaching consequences, impacting not just our own evolutionary trajectory, but the entire biosphere.
Okay, wow. That puts things into a whole new perspective. We've already debunked the triune brain and uncovered the concept of the body budget. And it's clear that evolution isn't always about drastic transformations. What other brain myths are we tackling today?
Let's shift gears and delve into the fascinating world of brain networks.
Okay.
And when we say network, it's not just a metaphor.
Uh-huh.
It's a literal description of how your brain is physically structured.
Okay.
Billions of interconnected neurons are constantly communicating with each other, forming intricate pathways that give rise to everything from thoughts and emotions to movements and sensations.
I have to admit, I always thought we were born with all the neurons we'd ever have.
Uh-huh.
Is that another myth ready to be busted?
You got it.
Yeah.
Baby brains actually start with more neurons than adult brains.
Hold on, more. But wouldn't that mean a baby's brain is more powerful or complex than an adult's? It seems counterintuitive.
That's a common misconception. It's not about the quantity of neurons, but the efficiency of their connections.
Okay.
As we grow and learn, our brains go through a process called pruning, where unused or inefficient neural connections are eliminated.
So it's like decluttering your brain. You're getting rid of connections that aren't serving you well,
Yeah,
which makes the remaining ones stronger and faster.
exactly. Think of it this way. By getting rid of the noise of unused connections, your brain can focus on what's important for your specific environment and experiences. It becomes more specialized and efficient.
That makes sense. It reminds me of how simplifying a complex system can often make it more effective.
Yeah.
It's like cleaning out your closet, getting rid of clothes you never wear, makes it easier to find the things you actually love.
And this pruning process underscores the incredible power of early experiences in shaping the brain. The environment we're exposed to as children literally sculpts the architecture of our brains.
Wow.
Those early interactions influence everything, from our cognitive abilities to our emotional regulation and even our social skills.
Wow, that puts a lot of responsibility on parents and caregivers. Speaking of shaping our perception of the world, this is where the concept of the cocktail party effect comes in, right? This idea that our brains don't experience reality directly, but construct an internal model based on sensory input.
The perfect example. Think about how you can be in a crowded room with multiple conversations happening around you
Right.
and still hear your name mentioned across the room.
Uh-huh.
Your brain is filtering out tons of information. Focusing on what it predicts is relevant to you.
I've definitely experienced that. And I always wondered how my brain managed to pick out my name amidst all that noise. So it's not just passively taking in everything, it's actively filtering and prioritizing information based on what it expects to be important.
What's fascinating is that this filtering process has a profound impact on how we see the world and make sense of it. Our brains are constantly making predictions based on past experiences.
Okay.
And this influences what we pay attention to, how we interpret events, and even how we react emotionally.
So in a sense, we're all living in our own individually constructed realities.
Yeah.
It's no wonder we sometimes have such different interpretations of the same event. But if our brains are so shaped by our individual experiences, are we stuck with the neural wiring we develop early in life? Or can we remake our brains as we grow older?
That's a crucial question.
Yeah.
And the answer is a resounding yes. Our brains are remarkably adaptable, constantly changing and rewiring themselves throughout our lives.
Mm.
And this is where our relationships with others become incredibly important.
You're saying that our relationships actually have a physical impact on our brains. Tell me more about that. How do our social connections influence our neural wiring?
Absolutely. Supportive relationships, whether with family, friends, or romantic partners, contribute to better physical health. They help regulate our stress response, boost our immune systems, and can even influence how efficiently our bodies process food.
Wait, seriously? You're telling me that having close friends could help me manage my weight?
Well, it's not quite as simple as that. But there is research that suggests chronic stress can actually reduce the body's metabolic efficiency. One study found that eating a meal while stressed
Mm-hmm.
added the equivalent of 104 calories to that meal,
What?
even if the food itself was healthy.
That's incredible and a little terrifying. I'm definitely going to prioritize stress management from now on, so our relationships can literally reshape our brains and impact our physical health.
Yeah.
What other fascinating insights did Lisa Feldman Barrett share about how our brains are remade by the world around us?
She delves into some really intriguing research on how even seemingly simple things like our posture, the words we use, and the facial expressions we make
Mm-hmm.
can influence not only our own brains and bodies, but those of the people around us as well.
So it's not just a one-way street. It's like we're all part of this giant feedback loop, constantly influencing each other on a neurological level.
Yeah.
That's both fascinating and a bit daunting. It makes you wonder about the kind of society we're creating and the long-term impact it has on our brains.
It raises an important question about the role of culture in shaping our brains.
Mm,
We often think of culture as something external, something
Wow.
we learn and adapt to.
right.
But Lisa Feldman Barrett argues that it's actually deeply intertwined with our neurobiology.
Mm.
Our brains are constantly absorbing and adapting to the cultural norms and values of the societies we live in, shaping how we think, feel, and behave.
So it's not just our individual experiences that mold our brains, but also the shared beliefs and practices of our communities. It really highlights the power of culture to influence who we are and how we see the world.
And it underscores the importance of being aware of the cultural biases and assumptions that can shape our thinking.
Hmm.
We often take our own cultural perspective for granted, seeing it as the norm or the right way of doing things,
Right.
but recognizing that it's just one way of experiencing the world
Yeah.
can help us become more open-minded and empathetic towards people from different backgrounds.
That's so important in today's increasingly interconnected world. It's easy to get stuck in our own cultural bubbles and forget that there are other ways of thinking and being. Okay, so we've explored how our brains are shaped by evolution, our body budget, our individual experiences, our relationships, and even our culture. But there's still this big question looming. What about consciousness? How does all of this intricate neural activity create the subjective experience of being a me in the world?
Ah, the age-old mystery of consciousness.
Right.
It's a question that has puzzled philosophers and scientists for centuries, and unfortunately, it's not something we can fully answer in a short deep dive.
Of course, it's a massive topic. But even if we can't fully explain consciousness, are there any insights from Lisa Feldman Barrett's work that help us understand how this sense of self emerges? I'm curious to hear her perspective.
She proposes that our brains are constantly creating a model of the world.
Okay.
And this model includes a representation of ourselves as agents within that world.
Hmm.
It's like our brain is building a simulation, and we're the main character in that simulation.
So instead of there being a specific me center in the brain,
Right.
it's more like a distributed network of activity that creates this sense of self. That's fascinating.
Exactly. And this sense of self is constantly being updated based on new experiences and interactions with the world.
Okay.
It's a dynamic and fluid process, not a fixed entity.
Yeah.
We're not the same me that we were yesterday
Right.
or even an hour ago.
I can definitely relate to that. I know I feel like a different me depending on who I'm with and what I'm doing. It's
Yeah.
like different aspects of my personality come to the forefront depending on the situation.
And this idea that the self is constructed rather than inherent has some interesting implications for how we view ourselves and others.
Mm.
It suggests that we have more agency in shaping our own identities than we might think.
Okay.
We're not just passive products of our genes or environment, but active participants in creating our own sense of self.
That's empowering. It means we're not just stuck with the me we were born with, but have the potential to grow and evolve throughout our lives. This deep dive is already making me think about myself and the world in a whole new way.
And that's one of the most exciting things about neuroscience. The more we learn about how our brains work,
Yeah.
the more we realize how much potential we have for change and transformation.
Right.
It opens up possibilities for improving our mental and physical health, fostering more compassionate relationships, and even creating a more just and equitable society.
Speaking of creating a better future, I was really struck by how Lisa Feldman Barrett emphasized the importance of understanding the brain for making wise decisions, both individually and collectively.
Hmm.
She even said she hopes her work will help us evolve as a species.
Yeah,
That's a bold statement.
it is. And it speaks to the idea that knowledge about the brain isn't just about satisfying intellectual curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
It's also about empowering us to make more informed choices that benefit ourselves and future generations.
So it's not just about studying the brain in a lab, but about bringing those insights into the real world and using them to make a positive impact.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the incredible power and potential of our brains
Yeah.
and then using that knowledge to create a better future for everyone. What are some ways you think this brain awareness could guide us towards a better future?
Well, I think it has enormous implications for education. If we understand how young brains develop,
Uh-huh.
we can create learning environments that nurture curiosity, creativity, and resilience.
Right.
And it can help us identify and address learning challenges early on, giving every child the opportunity to reach their full potential.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what about the implications for healthcare? Could understanding the brain lead to new treatments for mental health disorders and even chronic illnesses?
I'm no expert,
Yeah.
but I think we're already seeing promising developments in areas like neurofeedback, mindfulness-based interventions,
Yeah.
and even personalized medicine based on an individual's unique brain chemistry. It feels like we're on the cusp of some major breakthroughs that could transform our lives in profound ways.
And what's even more exciting is that this knowledge is becoming increasingly accessible to everyone.
Right.
We're no longer limited to academic journals and scientific conferences,
Right.
books like Lisa Feldman Barrett's, podcasts like this one,
Yeah.
and even social media platforms are making brain science more engaging and understandable for the general public.
It's like we're all becoming citizen neuroscientists. And the
Mm.
more we understand about our brains, the more empowered we are to take control of our own health and well-being, build stronger relationships, and create a more compassionate and equitable world. It's inspiring to think about all the possibilities.
And that brings us to the heart of Lisa Feldman Barrett's message.
Mhm.
Understanding the brain is not just about acquiring knowledge.
Mhm.
It's about using that knowledge to create a better future for ourselves in generations to come.
I love that. It's like she's saying, okay, now that you know this amazing stuff about your brain, go out and make the world a better place.
Right.
It's a call to action for all of us to become more mindful, compassionate, and engaged citizens.
And it all starts with recognizing that we're not just individuals with separate brains, but rather interconnected members of a global community,
Mhm.
sharing a responsibility for creating a world that supports the well-being of all.
This deep dive has been a real eye-opener. It's made me realize how much power we have to shape our own brains and the brains of those around us.
Hmm.
And it's inspired me to be more conscious of the choices I make, the relationships I cultivate, and the impact I have on the world.
And remember, this is just the beginning of the journey. There's so much more to discover about the brain.
Yeah.
And every new insight opens up new possibilities for growth, healing, and positive change. Before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a thought-provoking question.
Okay.
Based on something Lisa Feldman Barrett said at the end of her talk.
Oh.
She mentioned that she hopes her work will help us evolve as a species.
Hmm.
What changes do you think are most important for creating a more brain-aware society?
That's a big question. It makes me think about how we can take all these fascinating insights about the brain and actually apply them to create positive change in the world.
Yeah.
Where do we even begin?
There's so many possibilities. We can use this knowledge to advocate for policies that support early childhood development, promote mental health awareness, and create more inclusive and equitable communities.
Hmm.
Think about the impact on our justice system, our healthcare system,
Right.
even the way we design our cities and workplaces.
It's like we need to start thinking about the world through a brain-aware lens. We've been designing systems and structures without fully understanding how they impact our brains and behavior.
Exactly. Imagine a world where education is tailored to the way our brains actually learn, where healthcare prioritizes mental and emotional well-being, where our social spaces are designed to reduce stress and foster connection. It's not just a utopian dream. It's a future we can start building today by applying what we know about the brain.
You know, when we started this deep dive, I thought we were just going to be exploring some cool facts about the brain.
Yeah.
But it's turned into something much bigger. It's like a call to action, an invitation to use this knowledge to make a real difference in the world.
And that's what makes Lisa Feldman Barrett's work so compelling. She's not just a neuroscientist.
Right.
She's an advocate for change. She believes that understanding the brain can empower us to create a more humane, just, and fulfilling world for everyone.
Well, I have to say, this deep dive has been a truly transformative experience. It's given me a whole new appreciation for the intricate workings of my own brain, and it's inspired me to be more mindful, compassionate, and engaged in creating a world that supports the well-being of all.
That's wonderful to hear. And remember, the journey of understanding the brain is ongoing.
Right.
There's always more to learn and explore. Stay curious, keep asking questions, and let's continue to unlock the mysteries of this remarkable organ together.
Thanks for joining us on this incredible deep dive. We hope it's left you feeling empowered, inspired, and maybe even a little bit brainier. Until next time, keep those neurons firing, and remember, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to understanding the amazing potential of the human brain.